Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us. So this time we're tackling the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Retroid Pocket Mini. And trying to figure out which one is the right pick for you if you're in the market. We dug into a really great comparison review. It's called Retroid Pocket 5 versus Retroid Pocket Mini, What to Buy. And we're going to break it all down for you. We're talking specs, pros, cons, all that good stuff to help you make the best decision for your retro gaming needs.
These two devices really cater to different types of players, you know? It's kind of cool. We've got like the powerhouse over here, and then we've got the nostalgia machine over there. So let's start with the Retroid Pocket 5, maybe.
That's good to me. It's sleek, it runs on Android, and it's $219. That price point's not bad at all. But then you hear about the display. You ready for this? 5.5-inch AMOLED screen with 1080p resolution. Can you imagine how vibrant those colors are going to be?
Oh yeah, it's going to be stunning. But it's not just a pretty face either. This thing's got some serious power under the hood. It's got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 processor and 8 GB of RAM. So you're going to be able to play even the really demanding games, like PlayStation 2 games, even GameCube titles, smooth as butter.
Okay, see, now that's what I'm looking for. But I've heard people saying that the chipset's not the absolute newest one out there. Is that something to be worried about?
Not really, no. I mean, sure, there might be newer chipsets on the market, but the Snapdragon 865 is a total beast when it comes to gaming.
Yeah.
Especially for emulation. You're not going to be seeing any lag or slowdown.
News to my ears. And get this, it's the first Retroid device that has dual OS capability. So right out of the box, you can choose between Android 13 and Linux, which I'm guessing opens up a whole bunch of possibilities.
Absolutely. Just imagine, right, you could seamlessly switch between Android for like your modern games and your apps and stuff. Then boot into like a custom retro gaming platform like Batsura. Yeah, basically it's a version of Linux that's like specifically configured to run these old school games. It's like having two consoles in one.
So it's a powerhouse and it's versatile.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why people are so excited about this. The review also mentions that it has interchangeable button layouts and it comes in a bunch of different colors. Seems like you can really personalize this thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it also has active cooling to keep it from overheating, especially if you're playing for long periods of time. It's got a massive 5,000 mAh battery, so you can play for hours and hours, plus Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. This thing is like a mini computer in your pocket, and it only weighs 280 grams.
Okay, color me impressed. But before I get ahead of myself, let's talk about the Retroid Pocket Mini. Now, this one is all about nostalgia. I'm already feeling those warm, fuzzy feelings.
I know, right? It's like stepping back in time. But with modern tech, like if the Pocket 5 is about pushing the boundaries, the Mini is all about capturing that authentic retro feel. It's like having a Game Boy Micro or a Game Boy Advance, but with an awesome AMOLED display.
It is smaller though, right?
Yeah, it's 3.7 inches.
I mean, are those retro games still going to look good on a screen that size?
Oh yeah, totally. They're going to look crisp and vibrant. The Mini is all about recreating that classic handheld experience, but with a modern twist.
I like that. Can this little guy handle serious emulation though?
Oh, don't underestimate it. This little machine can emulate a ton of different consoles. NES, SNES, Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, even PlayStation. You can even play some PlayStation 2 and GameCube games on it, although they might look a little better on a bigger screen.
So it's not just a novelty, it packs a punch. What about the software? Is it easy to use? Can you install emulators without pulling your hair out?
It's actually really streamlined. It runs on a custom Android 10 OS. It's made specifically for retro gaming, so everything's super easy to navigate. Installing emulators is a breeze. And the review mentioned that it's got smooth frame rates and responsive controls too, so the gameplay is going to be really top-notch.
Okay, this is sounding pretty good. How's the price compared to the Pocket 5 though?
Well, this is where the Mini really shines, especially if you're on a budget. It's only around $199, so you're getting solid emulation, decent battery life, all the essential features, without breaking the bank.
Right, affordability is always a plus. Can you personalize the Mini though? Can you tweak it? Because I like to tinker.
Absolutely. The Mini is surprisingly customizable. You can download themes to make it look like classic consoles. You can remap the buttons however you like. You can even install custom launchers. And there's a huge online community dedicated to modding the Mini. You can find custom firmware, all kinds of enhancements. You can really make it your own.
It's incredible how much you can do with these devices. So we've got two really great options here. I can see why it would be hard to choose. Maybe we should do a little head-to-head comparison.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start with performance. The Pocket 5 is definitely the winner if you're looking for raw power, like if you want to play those really demanding games and emulators. But if portability and that classic handheld feel are more important to you, then the Mini's the way to go. It's super compact, you know, and it just oozes nostalgia.
What about customization?
Well, the Pocket 5 is really flexible with that dual OS setup. You can really dive deep and customize it to your heart's content. The Mini's a little more straightforward. It's Android, but it's still really customizable, especially with that awesome community we talked about.
And how about battery life and connectivity? Are there any big differences there?
Both devices have all the modern features you'd expect, like Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. The Pocket 5 does have a bigger battery, though, so you'll get longer playtime, especially if you're playing those more demanding games. The Mini's battery is decent, but you will probably need to charge it more often.
So it really all comes down to your needs and priorities. Let's do a little thought experiment here. Pretend I'm coming to you for advice. I want the best possible experience, but I also want to be mindful of my budget.
Okay, so you're not necessarily looking for the absolute top of the line, but you're willing to spend a little extra for quality.
Yeah.
What kind of games are you most excited to play? Are we talking classic consoles, modern indies, maybe even some game streaming?
Mostly classic consoles, but I'm definitely open to trying out some newer indie titles. And I'm not opposed to streaming.
Okay, cool. And what about portability? Are you going to be gaming mostly at home, on the go? A little bit of both?
Definitely a bit of both. I want something I can take with me on trips or on my commute, but I also want to be able to chill at home and play some game.
All right, I'm getting a clearer picture now, based on what you told me. I think the Retroid Pocket 5 would be the perfect choice for you. It's definitely got the power to handle those classic consoles you love, and it can handle modern indies and streaming too. Plus, that dual OS setup gives you a ton of flexibility, and that big battery is going to come in handy when you're on the go.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's pretend I'm a different person. This time, budget is my top concern. I mostly want to play those classic consoles from my childhood. And while I like the idea of customization, I'm not exactly a tech expert. Oh, and portability is super important to me. I want something I can just throw in my pocket and take anywhere.
In that case, I think the Retroid Pocket Mini is your perfect match. It's super affordable, it's amazing for emulating those classic consoles, and it's so small and portable it might not have all the bells and whistles of the Pocket 5, but it's still customizable. And it's really easy to use.
Okay, you're like a retro gaming guru. All right, so for anyone listening who's still on the fence, let's just do a quick recap of the key takeaways for each device.
Sure thing. So the Retroid Pocket 5, it's for those who want the best of both worlds. It's super powerful. It can handle demanding games and emulators. It's got a sleek modern design. And that dual OS capability means you can customize it like crazy.
And the Retroid Pocket Mini?
The Mini's all about that classic handheld gaming experience. It's small, it's affordable, and it's perfect for those who value nostalgia and portability. Don't let its size fool you, though. It can still handle a ton of different emulators, and it's surprisingly customizable.
So both devices are awesome.
Definitely.
It just depends on what you're looking for. But here's a thought-provoking question for you. Now that you know all about these devices, which games or consoles are you most excited to revisit? Just imagine holding those pixelated worlds in the palm of your hand. Ready to relive all those epic adventures. Are you picturing it?
Now I am. Okay, so let's keep this retro gaming train rolling. In part one, we kind of gave you a broad overview of the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Retroid Pocket Mini, but now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to dive a little deeper into the strengths and weaknesses of each of these devices. So let's start with the Pocket 5. We talked about how powerful it is. Are there any downsides to all that power?
Well, there are always trade-offs, right? I mean, nothing's perfect. With the Pocket 5, I think the biggest thing to consider is that it can be a little bit complex. I mean, you've got the dual OS, which is awesome for flexibility, but it can be kind of overwhelming if you're not really used to tinkering with different operating systems.
Yeah, it's not exactly like pick it up and play. Exactly. And because it's got such a powerful processor, it does generate a bit of heat, especially when you're running those more demanding games. It has that active cooling system, which does a good job at keeping things cool, but you will definitely hear the fan kicking in sometimes.
So maybe not the best choice for silent gaming sessions at the library?
Probably not.
Anything else to consider?
Well, the size. I mean, it's got that big, beautiful screen, which is great, but it can be a little bulky, especially if you've got smaller pockets.
Okay, so it sounds like the Pocket 5. While awesome, it might not be for everyone, but for those who really want that power and flexibility, those trade-offs are probably worth it. Now let's switch gears and talk about the Retroid Pocket Mini. It's smaller, it's simpler, it's more affordable, but are there any areas where it falls short?
Well, the smaller screen, I mean, it's super charming, and it definitely adds to the whole nostalgia factor, but it can feel a little cramped sometimes, especially for games that have a lot of text on the screen or really detailed graphics. And it can technically handle some PlayStation 2 and GameCube games, but it's probably not the ideal way to play them.
Yeah, I can imagine trying to play Shadow of the Colossus on a 3.7-inch screen.
Yeah, that might be a little rough.
What about performance? Any noticeable lag? Slow down.
For the most part, it performs really well. You might run into some occasional hiccups, though, especially with the more demanding emulators. It's not as powerful as the Pocket 5, obviously, but for most classic games, it's going to run perfectly fine.
What about battery life? We talked about how the Pocket 5 has that massive battery. How does the Mini compare?
It's decent, but it's not going to last you for hours and hours of gameplay. You'll probably need to recharge it more often, especially if you're playing those more power-hungry games.
So basically, the Mini sacrifices some power and features for portability and affordability, which makes sense.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance for you.
Right. So for those who value simplicity, nostalgia, and a good price, the Mini is still a fantastic option.
Absolutely. Both the Pocket 5 and the Pocket Mini are amazing devices.
It's true.
It all comes down to what you're looking for.
You know what's really cool is that Retroid is catering to such a wide range of retro gamers.
I know, right?
With these two devices. Whether you're like a hardcore emulator enthusiast who wants to push the limits, or you're just a casual player who wants to relive those classic games, there's a Retroid out there for you.
Totally. And we haven't even talked about customization yet.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
I know. It's like they give you a blank canvas and a set of paints. You can really do whatever you want with these things.
What are some of the cool things people are doing with their Retroids? Like, are we talking custom themes, button remapping, crazy mods?
Oh yeah, all the above. The Retroid community is so creative.
I bet.
You can find all kinds of amazing custom firmware online, themes, tweaks, all sorts of stuff.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so with the Pocket 5 and its dual OS capability, people are running custom Linux distributions that are specifically made for retro gaming, like Batocera, for example. These platforms are super streamlined and optimized for retro gaming. It's like having a dedicated retro gaming machine.
So you can basically turn your Pocket 5 into a retro gaming console.
Pretty much.
What about the Pocket Mini? Any cool customization tricks for that one?
Oh yeah, for sure. Even though it's a simpler device, it's still really customizable. People are making custom themes to make it look like all those classic consoles, like the Game Boy Color or the Super Nintendo. You can remap the buttons, you can install custom launchers. It's awesome.
It really is. I'm starting to understand why people get so into this. But let's be real. For someone who's not super tech savvy, all this talk about custom firmware and Linux, it can be a little intimidating.
It can. But honestly, it's not as complicated as it sounds. The Retroid community is super helpful.
I bet.
And there are tons of tutorials and guides online.
That makes sense.
So don't be afraid to dive in and experiment.
So even if you're not a coding expert, you can still customize your Retroid. Are there any specific websites or forums that you would recommend for people who want to learn more about this stuff?
Definitely. The official Retroid website is a good place to start. They've got forums you can connect with other users, download firmware updates, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And there are also some amazing community-run websites and forums.
Perfect. We'll be sure to include links to all of that in the show notes. You know, it's really inspiring to see how passionate people are about retro gaming.
I know, it's amazing.
It's more than just a hobby. It's like a way to connect with our childhoods and relive those magical moments.
It's a way of life.
It is.
It really is a testament to the power of video games. Those classic games still hold up so well. And there's something special about playing them on a dedicated handheld.
I agree. And with devices like the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Pocket Mini, that experience is more accessible and enjoyable than ever.
Totally.
It's like holding a portal to your childhood in the palm of your hand.
That's a great way to put it.
But hold on a sec. We've been so caught up in all the technical stuff, we haven't even talked about the games themselves.
Oh, you're right.
The reason we're all here.
We should probably talk about the games.
Okay, so let's buckle up and get ready for a trip down memory lane.
All right. We're talking about those iconic games that defined our childhoods. Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Street Fighter 2, Pokemon Red and Blue, Donkey Kong Country, Metroid, Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. I could go on and on.
And that's just scratching the surface.
Exactly.
There are so many hidden gems out there.
Yeah.
Cult classics, games that never got the recognition they deserved. With a Retroid, you can explore the entire history of video games. It's incredible.
It's like having a museum of gaming history. right in your pocket.
Exactly.
And you could rediscover these games with fresh eyes, appreciate them for the groundbreaking experiences they were. Or you can introduce them to a whole new generation.
That's a great idea.
Share those magical moments with your kids.
Now that's what I call keeping the spirit of gaming alive. Okay, let's get practical for a second. How do you actually get these games onto your Retroid?
It's actually really simple. You just download ROMs, which are basically digital copies of the game cartridges from various websites online.
ROMs. Those sound familiar. Wait a minute. Are ROMs legal?
Well, the legality of ROMs is a little bit of a gray area, technically. Downloading ROMs for games that you don't own is considered copyright infringement. But there's definitely an argument to be made for fair use, especially if you already own the original game cartridge.
Right. So it's probably best to err on the side of caution.
I think so.
And only download ROMs for games that you already own.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, once you have your ROMs, how do you get them onto your Retroid?
Both the Pocket 5 and the Pocket Mini have micro SD card slots. So you just copy the ROMs onto a micro SD card, pop it into your device, and then use an emulator to load the game.
Emulators. Can you explain what an emulator is exactly and how it works? Because I think some people might not be familiar with that term.
Sure. Basically, an emulator is a piece of software that mimics the hardware of a particular console. So let's say you want to play Super Nintendo games on your Retroid. You would use a Super Nintendo emulator. The emulator tricks the game into thinking that it's running on an actual Super Nintendo console.
Oh, that's pretty clever. So are there emulators for like all the different consoles?
Oh yeah, pretty much. There are emulators for almost every console imaginable, from the Atari 2600 to the PlayStation 2 and beyond, and most of them are free.
Wow. So you're telling me I could potentially play thousands of classic games on my Retroid,
Yep.
all for free.
That's the beauty of it.
That's pretty amazing. But with so many emulators out there, how do I know which ones are good? Are there any that you recommend?
That's a great question. The world of emulators can be a little overwhelming, but there are definitely some that stand out. Like RetroArch is a really popular one. It supports a ton of different consoles. It's a little bit more complex to set up, but it's really powerful and customizable.
And what about for people who want something a little simpler?
There are plenty of emulators that are specifically designed for individual consoles. Like John GBA is a really good Game Boy Advance emulator. And SNES 9X Plus is great for Super Nintendo.
So there's something for everyone.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just a matter of finding the ones that work for you.
Exactly.
Once you have your emulator set up, you can just dive into that massive library of retro games.
Exactly.
It's a pretty amazing experience.
It is.
You know, we've been talking a lot about the past.
Yeah.
But what about the future of retro gaming? Are there any exciting developments on the horizon? Any new Retroid devices in the works?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I know, right?
The retro gaming scene is constantly evolving.
It's true.
New emulators are being developed all the time. Classic games are being remastered. New handhelds are hitting the market.
It's true. The retro gaming scene is definitely alive and well. What about Retroid specifically, though? Any rumors? Any leaks about their next big release?
Well, the rumor mill is always churning.
It is.
There have been whispers of a potential Retroid Pocket 6.
Pocket 6.
Yeah, which could have even more powerful hardware and a bigger screen.
No, that would be something.
It would. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
For now, we have the Pocket 5 and the Pocket Mini, both of which are incredible devices.
They are?
That offer endless hours of retro gaming fun.
Who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll see Retroid devices that can handle even more demand in emulators. Or maybe they'll come up with some crazy new form factor.
The possibilities are endless.
It's exciting.
It is.
But for now, let's appreciate the amazing devices we have and the incredible library of classic games that we can play on them.
I agree.
I think that's a great note to end on. For part 2 of our Deep Dive, when we come back, we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts and recommendations to help you choose the perfect Retroid device for your retro gaming adventures.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Retroid Pocket Mini.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? We have. We talked about the specs, the features, all that customization stuff, and of course, the games. So now, let's make sure you're ready to choose the right Retroid for your retro gaming needs.
I think we've given you all the tools you need to make a good decision.
I hope so. So, just to recap, if you're all about power, if you love to tinker, if you want to play a wide range of games, including some newer titles, the Retroid Pocket 5 is the way to go.
Yeah, that thing is a beast.
It is! Imagine playing like God of War on the go.
That would be awesome.
The Pocket 5 can do it.
It can.
But if you're looking for something a little more affordable, a little more portable, something that just oozes nostalgia, the Retroid Pocket Mini is calling your name.
It's like a time machine, you know?
It is. It takes you right back to your childhood.
Back to those classic 8-bit and 16-bit games.
Exactly.
And it fits right in your pocket.
It's like choosing between a tricked-out gaming PC and that old console you grew up with.
I like that analogy.
Both are awesome, but it just depends what you're looking for. I think the best device is the one that makes you happy.
Couldn't agree more.
The one that lets you relive those great gaming memories.
And don't forget, no matter which device you choose, you're joining a fantastic community.
Oh yeah, the retro gaming community is awesome.
There's tons of support out there. Forums, tutorials, custom firmware, you name it.
It's really cool to see how passionate people are about retro gaming.
It really is.
It's more than just a hobby, you know?
Absolutely.
It's a way to connect with our past.
And keep those classic games alive.
Exactly. So, to wrap things up, you've got two amazing options. The Retroid Pocket 5 gives you power and flexibility. The Retroid Pocket Mini gives you portability, nostalgia, and affordability.
It's a win-win situation, really.
It is. Choose the one that speaks to you, explore those awesome game libraries, experiment with customization, connect with the community, and most importantly, have fun.
That's what it's all about.
Relive those classic gaming moments. Share them with others. Who knows, maybe you'll inspire a new generation of retro gamers.
That'd be awesome.
It would. Well, that's it for our deep dive into the Retroid Pocket 5 and the Retroid Pocket Mini. Until next time, keep those pixels firing.